NECROSALAD!
Welcome back to Grow Home. This is the full, official, completed review written by me, obviously. I'm not going to try and spoil anything for you, but, well, there's not much to spoil about this game anyways. But without further ado, let's start with the overview. Grow Home is a casual 3D adventure platformer set in a very polygonal, very colorful planet that hosts a cosmically rare star plant. The main character, Bud, defined as botanical utility droid, is dispatched to the planet's surface by the ship's computer Mom. I don't recall the game defining Mom, but in the world of forced acronyms, I think it's better to leave that be. Bud is tasked with growing the star plant to 2,000 meters in order for the plant to flower and therefore harvest the star seeds, which are needed for the journey home in our very cute spaceship. This is accomplished by encouraging, quote-unquote there, the growth of star shoots to literally plug into energy rocks that are floating around the world. But it has to climb up each star shoot and straddle the head of the sprout to activate growth. Yes, I'm making this cute, child-friendly game sound very sexual, but think of Bud as a pollinator to the colossal star plant. Bud traverses the environment through running and climbing. The game is best played with a controller. I haven't even tried it with the keyboard. It's probably abysmal, but you alternate trigger presses to allow him to climb. But besides climbing and running, Bud also has the ability to traverse the planet through use of teleporting telerouters, floating flowers, gliding leaves, and jetting jetpacks. If a player misses their mark with any of these methods of transportation, Bud will fall endlessly until impacting the surface of the planet or the floating island in some way. Small falls are manageable, but large plummets will result in adorable death by polygonal explosion. Fear not, as Bud will respawn at the last telerouter accessed without death penalty. All progress is saved, nothing is lost. This is, after all, a casual gaming experience. Various other bits of wildlife and plant life scatter the surface of the planet with limited interactivity. Mom will continue to nag you about collecting those life forms and placing them in the telerouters for analysis, but it's only a side objective. Moving on to my developer section, this one's interesting for Grow Home. The game feels extremely indie in presentation, yet it dons the Ubisoft brand, or you might say Ubisoft, depending on where you come from. Either way, I'm going to say Ubisoft. More specifically, the game was developed by the Ubisoft Reflections team, which is a product of some corporate maneuvering in the early 2000s, as I understand it, of Reflections Interactive. It's a dev team that started way back in the mid-'80s. This team has been developing AAA games for a very long time, although I assume Grow Home was most likely an experimental project that blossomed into a very, very enjoyable little game. Now, let's talk about the pros. The first thing that I liked about Grow Home was the visually striking color palette and minimalist design to the planet. The views can be stunning at times, especially when at higher altitudes. The draw distance allows the player to see everything the game has to offer, extending all the way to the outer atmosphere of the planet and conversely down to the planet's surface when standing on the ship near the end of the climb. Now, I will define some issues with the controls I have later on. However, the traversal mechanics make this game really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun sailing around the skies, using the gliding leaf and rocking myself in odd directions using the geysers and catapults. Although I did have some trouble with those as well, to be honest. But, they worked most of the time. Ultimately, taking a telerouter to the top and leaping off to eventual death by splattering against the planet's surface is infinitely amusing. It's good to note as well that there's no necessity for the player to actually grow the star shoots in a proper direction towards the energy rocks. So I took the liberty to try and just draw shapes and create structure and just do all kinds of weird stuff with the star shoots, which will eventually stop growing, and then you could just hop down a few ways to the next little sprout and start the whole process over again. The soundtrack to the game is pretty good. It's not great. It's alright. It's suitable for the nature of the casual gaming experience. Moving on to the cons. I didn't have any major game-breaking bugs or significant problems. However, considering the developer, I felt that Grow Home was not well-polished enough as a finished product. The minor problems I ran into were occasional issues with controls and interactivity. I had moments of falling from surfaces that I know I was firmly attached to just moments ago. Sometimes I could not pull a crystal out of the ground, without somehow losing my grip and causing myself to fall. The undersides of the star shoots sometimes can become real headaches as Bud fails to grip any part of the terrain when climbing down. I don't know why that is. I just assume it's part of the procedurally generated sprouts. Star shoots themselves can become death traps if you manage to submerge yourself in the landscape at odd angles. And if you watch the series, you saw me do that on a couple of occasions. It's very doable considering the wild nature of the star shoots at the start of growth. And to elaborate on that, pretty much near the end of growth, the star shoots are really controllable, but when you first start, they will just beam off in any direction, and you're really wrestling trying to get those things to do what you want. Lastly, and most annoyingly, Bud will start to lean and fall when standing on the slightest of angles of terrain, which caused me to panic for grip a lot. So I was always just got to the point where I was just holding the triggers down all the time when I was looking around because I didn't want to fall down. It's kind of stupid. He should be able to at least stand or use his legs, considering he's a robot. Now, this is contrary to my inside review, but it needs to be said anyways because it's more the case than not. The game was built in Unity, which seems to naturally inherit some jank to it. It's just like the Bethesda games. There's always they're kind of rough around the edges. Apologies to Unity, but the model of making game development easy means that the game is not going to run very clean most of the time. The animations and climbing mechanics were kind of hitchy at times. His legs would bounce around all over the place. It just looked pretty goofy. They would kind of turn inside out really often. But you can really only compensate for what he's doing by listening to the sound of the click when he actually grips something, or basically you just have to listen to make sure that what you think is happening is actually happening. Can't really describe that better without you actually playing the game. Grow Home is also very short, with the main objective only taking me a couple hours to complete. I did take some time with the other side content. Basically, it's just exploring around and collecting crystals and stuff, which they, in all fairness, do give you some power-ups that help you complete the game a little bit easier, but they're completely not necessary. They don't have much appeal to me at all. Still find the game's length and content to be a fair price for what it is on Steam currently. And as the last little complaint, the constant feedback of sounds from Bud really started to drive me nuts as I played through the game. This is completely different to what I was just talking about with the audible clicks that he makes when he grips something, but it's just whenever you do something small, Bud just starts making these noises. It's really annoying to hear, especially when you're playing with headphones, as I commonly do. Moving on to the verdict. Grow Home is a very beautiful and minimalistic game. The main objective is simplistic and enjoyable to complete. The game mechanics are very entertaining. However, the controls can be problematic at times. The soundtrack fits the playstyle quite nicely, but the sound effects from Bud are too numerous and rather annoying. The main objective of the game was pretty short, only taking me about 2 hours to complete. The side content was available, but unappealing. Altogether, I still believe the price to be fair for my gaming experience. With all that said, I still recommend picking up the game and just set aside a night to play through the whole thing. You'll get some snacks and just enjoy walking, climbing, falling around the environment, and get to the top, complete it, have a good time. That is going to do it for my review of Grow Home. I hope you enjoyed the series. I really hope you do. I hope you pick up the game and play through it yourself and have some enjoyment like I did. But until next time, I will see you in the next video game.